Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a set of source documents that are, well, unlike anything we've really tackled before.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not looking at government reports or, market analyses. We are diving into this extraordinary, really personal account.
It's essentially a guide to a species and an unconventional memoir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not written for humans. It's written about us by an intelligence that initially found our entire existence just appalling.
Utterly appalling. Yet somehow he ultimately chose to become one of us.
It's just wild.
It really is. It's this archival transmission, right? It's addressed to the narrator's own people, the Vonadorians, and they're a civilization that's all about total logic, incredible technology, and maybe a profound lack of imagination.
A definite lack of imagination.
Right. They live in this world of instantaneous transport and eternal calm. So this document we have is their field agent's final report on Earth, or as they call it, Water Planet 7081.
I love that name.
So our mission today is to really unpack this startling transformation, to try and understand why an immortal being would trade that eternal rational calm for mortal confusing anguish.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The source material is this confession from an extraterrestrial entity. He's sent here with a single brutal objective.
A very clean objective.
Very clean, only to get completely, corrupted by something as irrational as love, something as primitive as music, and something as chemically suspect as Australian wine.
You can't forget the wine.
Never. So we're basically tracing the intellectual and emotional journey of a being who came here to destroy our future and ended up staying because he fell in love with our present.
And the beauty of this account, I think, is that it forces us to look at our own lives, our routines, our fears, our absurdities, but through this lens of pure, objective, and increasingly frustrated logic.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and you realize pretty quickly that if you can't explain something rationally to an advanced alien, it's probably because that exact thing is what makes our lives worth living.
Right. It's the stuff that makes no sense that actually matters.
Right.
So the narrative kicks off with the target and the threat.
Professor
Andrew Martin. The alien entity, our narrator, has to take Martin's form. It's a necessary disguise to carry out the mission.
And Martin is, a pretty specific guy. He's a 43-year-old mathematician at Cambridge. He's married to Isobel, who's a historian, and he's a father to a teenage son, Gulliver.
So this isn't just like a simple identity theft. It's a deep infiltration of a very complex, very enmeshed human life.
Oh, completely. And the stakes, like you said, are just astronomical. The real Andrew Martin had just done the impossible.
Yeah.
He solved the Riemann hypothesis.
And the alien's primary mission?
Zero sum. Destroy all evidence of the proof. The Vonadorians saw this solution as an immediate, an existential threat to the rest of the galaxy.
Okay, let's pause on that for a second, because for most people listening, the Riemann hypothesis probably sounds like some abstract math homework.
Totally.
So why did his species view this one proof as the bedrock of civilization and, a trigger for universal war?
Well, it all connects back to the very nature of numbers themselves, specifically prime numbers.
Okay.
Primes are, the fundamental building blocks of arithmetic. They're indivisible, but they're scattered across the number line in a way that seems totally random. They're like the atoms of mathematics.
Right, and the Riemann hypothesis is about finding a pattern in that chaos.
Exactly. It was first proposed by Bernhard Riemann way back in 1859, and it suggests there's this specific, really elegant pattern, a kind of rhythm to how those primes are distributed.
So it's like finding the musical score for the entire universe, but written in numbers.
That is a perfect analogy. If you solve it, the proof basically gives you a Rand unified theory for mathematical analysis. The sources are really clear on this. It would instantly revolutionize everything.
Everything like
Cryptography, data encryption, quantum physics. It could potentially explain the fundamental behavior of subatomic particles. And the thing that was most frightening for the Vonadorians, it would immediately accelerate our ability to do interstellar travel.
And build supercomputers.
So Martin had reached, and this is a quote, the very edge of knowledge. And the Vonadorians knew that giving a species defined by violence and greed that level of technology, well, it was a massive galactic security risk.
That makes the mission sound almost logical. I mean, from their perspective, of course. Ethically questionable for us, but logical for them. He was here to stop humanity before we became an interstellar plague armed with don't know, technological axes.
And that axe was Martin's proof. But before he could execute the mission, the infiltration had to begin. And that started with just a massive dose of physical and cultural revulsion.
His landing,
Yeah.
which wasn't so much a landing.
Not at all. His first contact with Earth was being hit by a silver-backed motorway vehicle.
I find the Vonadorian premise a little flawed, though. If they're beings of total logic, why risk sending a single, malleable entity to a planet that's known for chaos and primitive emotional feedback? Isn't corruption sort of mathematically inevitable?
That's a great question. The alien kind of addresses this, but indirectly. He suggests the Vonadorians believed their agent would be immune because of their superior logical processing and their total detachment from a physical form.
So they just miscalculated.
Badly. They miscalculated the pervasive nature of human life, and the first casualty of that miscalculation was aesthetics. Our narrator, who's used to whatever Vonadorian forms look like, found humans just physically appalling. He catalogs what he called hideous curiosities with this dry, surgical, scientific disdain.
And we should not skim over this list. It's a remarkable piece of objective, but also brutally offensive analysis of the human face.
The first thing that really got to him was the protuberant central nose. He just saw no logical purpose for it other than to break up the smooth plane of the face.
And then there were the lips.
Oh, the thin-skinned lips. He found them disgusting because they were constantly leaking saliva. He was also baffled by the primitive external auditory organs known as ears, which he noted were useless for hearing compared to Vonadorian sensors. And of course,
The unfathomably pointless eyebrows.
yes, the eyebrows.
I just love his focus on the eyebrows. It's such a minor detail, but so distinctly human.
Oh, yeah.
Did he ever report back on, the evolutionary purpose of them, or was it just pure aesthetic judgment?
It was almost entirely aesthetic judgment. He just saw them as biological errors. The report notes that they only serve to trap moisture or maybe express these minute emotional shifts, a function he considered completely superfluous to logical communication.
Right. Why show emotion when you can just state the facts?
Exactly. He said it took a long time to mentally absorb and accept these features. He basically classified them as redundant biological furniture.
So if our physical form was repulsive, our social environment must have been like cognitive poison to him.
He classified our social customs as a baffling enigma. Communication was just illogical because conversation rarely focused on what people actually wanted to talk about.
Just a dance of pleasantries and misdirection.
A total ritualistic dance. And the complexity of it all extended to how we cover our bodies. The alien notes that to understand body shame and clothing etiquette, he would need to read 97 books. And even then, he doubted he'd get it.
It really highlights how much of our existence is built on these layers of unnecessary convention and, shared illusions.
For sure. Even simple transport is an exercise in futility for him. He's used to instantaneous travel, so he observes Earth's transit system and says, roads connect points, but travel takes a lot of time.
And that doesn't just apply to roads.
No, it applies to careers or relationships as well. He sees the entire species as just mired in this slow, deliberate movement.
It's a powerful metaphor for their perspective, really. If you can cross light years in an instant, why would you tolerate a life that's structured around waiting in traffic or waiting for a promotion or waiting for a relationship to grow?
He can only find comfort in the most basic, undeniable laws of physics. He realizes that attraction and repulsion, the fundamental atomic laws, are still universal. And that fragile grip on objective truth is the only logic he can cling to.
And then there's his emotional reaction to Earth's elements. He talks about an immediate, almost mythological terror of rain. Just the wetness of it. Why such an extreme reaction to water falling from the sky?
It goes back to control and logic.
Right.
Rain is chaotic, it's pervasive, it's uncomfortable, it doesn't follow a schedule, and it serves no immediate rational purpose for a being that doesn't rely on agriculture.
It just messes things up.
It just interrupts the environment and makes the biological container, his new body, damp and cold. So for a being of pure logic, the spontaneous arrival of this terror of almost mythological proportions is just an irrational violation of order.
And this confusion leads directly to his first major social blunder, all thanks to a popular magazine.
The infamous cosmopolitan misinterpretation. So the alien, he's looking for guidance on human behavior, and he decides to walk naked around the grounds of Corpus Christi College.
As you do.
Right? And he explains it with his typical Vonadorian precision. Clothes chafe and are uncomfortable around my genitals. It was a deliberate, rational choice based purely on comfort and efficiency.
But then he tries to use what he thinks is advanced human social knowledge from the magazine And he tries to explain his actions by declaring he's pursuing a tantric full-body orgasm.
Which, of course, leads directly to him being intercepted by campus security, assessed by doctors, and committed to a hospital.
A completely logical outcome.
And this whole incident immediately introduces him to the deep paradox of human behavior. We publicly strive for rationality, but we are instantly horrified by raw, basic biological honesty.
The confusion only gets worse when he tries to apply logic to our relationships. He analyzes marriage and love with total scientific detachment.
Marriage is just a truly alien concept to him. He defines it as a loving union that's meant to bolster inherently weak love, but its fragility, the fact that it's so easily broken by divorce, makes it illogically structured.
Right. Why build a monument to something you know is statistically likely to fail?
Exactly. And love itself, which is mentioned constantly in Cosmopolitan, remains a profound mystery. To his rational mind, it sounds suspiciously like delusion.
This idea of self-imposed chemical delusion comes up again with coffee.
It is the perfect encapsulation of his view of human self-harm. He meticulously describes his first taste as a hot, foul, acidic, dual carbon compound.
Sounds delicious.
And it immediately causes his heart to race and his palms to sweat, classic signs of acute chemical stress and anxiety.
So the Vonadorian conclusion is, why would you voluntarily ingest something that makes you anxious and just speeds up your inevitable decay?
Because humans believe they have free will, and they voluntarily submit to these chemical tests and delusions. He concludes the species must enjoy this heightened artificial state of anxiety, maybe mistaking it for vitality or productivity.
It's all just another test.
Another test. The whole act is illogical, uncomfortable, and unnecessary, yet it's a cornerstone of this civilization. And it just confirms his initial bias. Humans are irrational, test-loving life forms who are actively choosing to suffer.
Okay, so the mission now moves from just physical and aesthetic revulsion to navigating the real horror, the human mind.
At the deep end.
He's hospitalized, placed among what he calls the crazy humans, the ones for whom the chaotic ways of the world were already proving to be too much. And it's here, surrounded by the mentally distressed, that his whole facade of rational superiority really starts to crack.
The hospital is where he first experiences genuine, irrational fear. He's frightened of everything, even the sight of his own hands, which he suddenly sees as these foreign instruments capable of doing disgusting things.
That's a huge shift.
It is. This is the first time the external world has truly dictated his internal state. And this fundamental truth settles in. To be on Earth was to be frightened.
The other patients in the ward, though, they become his accidental guides. They're the ones who already get how irrational the world is, and they've been broken by it.
They become his accidental philosophers. Specifically, there's a girl with pink hair who introduces him to Arthur Schopenhauer's foundational work, The World as Will and Representation.
Heavy reading for a hospital ward.
A bit. But she gives him this concise, devastating summary. The world we perceive isn't objective reality, it's just a representation. And humans are ultimately ruled by basic, biological, irrational desires, or will.
So for a Vonadorian who believes in objective, verifiable, universal logic, this idea that reality is just subjective interpretation, that must be the ultimate cognitive dissonance.
It's absolute chaos theory applied to existence itself. If reality is just a representation, then the fundamental logical structure he depends on is a lie. The girl explains that following this, will inevitably leads to suffering and ultimately to madness.
So the alien process is this, and he reaches the philosophical conclusion that if the Vonadorian structure of logic is just representation, then there's no external meaning to life. What was the girl's response to that profound, terrifying realization?
She just confirms that realizing this lack of meaning requires medical help.
Right.
The insight that life is meaningless is so corrosive to the human spirit that society literally requires you to get treatment for it.
And even after all that, after Schopenhauer and Cosmopolitan, love is still a total mystery.
A total frustrating mystery. It seems to defy even the philosophical nihilism of Schopenhauer.
But amidst all this horror and chaos and fear, there is one small, beautiful moment of appreciation for Earth's nature. A potted plant.
A single, shining, rich green plant in the hospital ward. It was the only thing that wasn't appallingly so. And he notes its purely logical, efficient function. Photosynthesis.
It just does its job.
It exists to convert light into energy. And that mechanical purity looked rather pretty to him. It was a moment of logical solace, where cause and effect were clear and elegant, unlike the confusing emotional mess of all the humans around him.
But the mission objective is still waiting. Despite all his philosophical and emotional distractions, the alien does successfully destroy the core threat.
He does. The infiltration into Professor Martin's office is successful. He accesses the 26-page digital document, proof of the Riemann hypothesis, and just deletes it instantly.
A moment of
A
satisfaction.
small, logical rush of satisfaction washes over him. He believes he saved the universe from human self-destruction.
And this action leads him to a deeper analysis of our fraught relationship with mathematics, which he titles The Madness of Numbers.
Yes. He concludes that humans are demonstrably not equipped to handle the deeper truths of mathematics. He focuses on the frustration caused by prime numbers, which thin out in this incomprehensible way. They appear to be random, defying any simple pattern, a microcosm of Earth's chaos.
And the sources quote this chilling insight that the infinite nature of primes, the idea that the total number of primes is the same as the total number of all numbers, was so profoundly baffling to the human mind that some mathematicians contemplating it.
Placed a gun into their mouth, pulled the trigger, and blew their brains out.
It's brutal.
And that's the critical Vonadorian fear, that contact with pure, chaotic mathematical truth just breaks the fragile human psyche. The history of the Riemann hypothesis itself underscores this. Bernhard Riemann, the 19th century German prodigy, had repeated nervous breakdowns trying to solve it.
He found the lock, but not the key.
Exactly. He found the lock in 1859, but died before he could find the key. The quest became desperate, promising interstellar travel and the unification of science. The alien saw this whole quest as inherently self-destructive.
So, with the proof destroyed, he turns his attention to observing human priorities through our media, the news. And his summary is devastatingly cynical.
He notes the baffling prioritization. There's nothing on new mathematical observations or newly discovered polygons, but there's endless, extensive coverage of politics and economics, which he just summarizes as the war and money show.
He sees humanity as defined entirely by those two primitive motivators, conflict and greed.
And he's fascinated by the hyper-localization of our interest. We care deeply about the cost of London houses or North Korea worrying South Korea events that are utterly insignificant on a galactic scale, but we ignore stellar or cosmic events.
This leads him to this highly logical, if a bit depressing, conclusion that the ideal human news program would only concern what was going on inside the house where the human lived.
The lead story would always be the most important fact, that the human watching it is watching it. It's an incredibly self-centered, localized reality. The Vonadorians, who operate on a cosmic scale, just cannot fathom prioritizing local concerns over universal ones.
That raises an interesting point about their methods. To truly blend in, the alien now has to navigate the most localized and potentially dangerous environment of all. Family dynamics. He has to interact with Isobel and Gulliver Martin.
Isobel Martin, the wife, is first sighted and described with his usual clinical detachment. Hideous. With a pale face, tired eyes, and that nose. But the description shifts a little. He notices she is very contained, like she's holding something back. She represents the first complex mystery he has to solve.
And we get access to her internal, hidden world through her novel, Wider Than the Sky, which she hides. The manuscript basically functions as a secret internal document, revealing her private thoughts on their failing marriage.
It's a sociological text for the alien. It reveals she had sacrificed her promising career as a historian for the family and that a divorce was already planned. She felt her husband had become a selfish bastard, a point that gets confirmed later by a colleague.
So the alien realizes he's occupying the shell of a life that was already shattered by the real Andrew Martin's intellectual obsession.
Exactly. And then there's the son, Gulliver, a 15-year-old, classified under the subcategory teenager, characterized by a weak resistance to gravity, meaning he slouches,
A perfect description.
grunts, a lack of spatial awareness, and an unending appetite for cereal.
But Gulliver, despite his appearance, shows this shocking emotional intelligence. He immediately diagnoses the alien's bizarre clinical behavior not as a breakdown, but as just typical parental selfishness hurting the family unit.
He does, and when the alien talks about the potential $1 million prize for the Riemann hypothesis proof, Gulliver confirms he knows about the money, but he just dismisses it entirely.
He says it doesn't amount to shit. He understands that the financial reward for pure math is meaningless compared to the emotional damage that's been inflicted on his mother.
And Gulliver's apathy toward these massive intellectual and financial stakes is a huge lesson for the alien. He sees that humans value love and connection, however messy they are, far more than abstract, destructive knowledge.
And finally, there's the dog, Newton, an English Springer Spaniel. Initially, Newton is hostile. He senses the difference in identity with that animal intuition the alien lacks.
The dog growled whenever the alien was near. He was a perfect detector of inauthenticity. But as the alien begins his own emotional decline, Newton's loyalty emerges. He starts licking the alien excessively, displaying this needy, physically incapable form of dedication.
This leads the alien to label dogs as geniuses of loyalty.
A form of devotion that transcends logic and self-interest. The alien is starting to observe and be influenced by these unconditional, irrational, emotional bonds.
And this is where the narrative really shifts. It goes from being a mission report to a personal confession of corruption. The logical framework just begins to dissolve and it's replaced by raw feeling.
He actually confesses the truth to Newton the dog, reveals his true nature, his identity as a murderer, and the dog, of course, just keeps licking him. And this confession highlights this Vonadorian observation that humans have body hospitals and mental hospitals, but they fail to see the complete convergence of the physical and the psychological. The alien is starting to understand that his acts have mental, emotional consequences, not just logical ones.
And this realization is tied to the sophisticated unseen technology that's residing in his left hand. This is the source of his Vonadorian superiority, but it ends up becoming the instrument of his emotional corruption.
This tech is really impressive, and it's highly detailed in his report. It allows him to contact home, strengthen his mind against the chaos, manipulate physical and mental processes, perform telekinesis, and use hypnosis.
And this isn't just theory, right? We get specific examples.
Oh yeah, the source mentions high-level telekinesis. He physically moved a peanut butter jar lid across a counter, just testing the boundaries of his power in this new domestic sphere.
And this gift, this power, was intended for self-preservation and protecting Vonadorian eternity. But the first deviation, the first time he uses the power for purely emotional reasons is, well, it's vindictive, petty, and deeply satisfying.
Hacking Gulliver's school computer network.
Precisely. The alien finds the security network preposterously easy to bypass, which is ironic because human security is based on exploiting the very prime number chaos that they fear.
So he uses his technology to change all the bullies' names to "I am the cause of shame" and infects their systems with the Flea, a virus that ensures the only message they can send is the passive yet devastatingly true "I am hurt and so I hurt."
Wow. This act of targeted emotional justice is a massive illogical turning point. He admits that on Vonadoria he had never done anything so vindictive. He's experiencing the deep satisfaction of human pettiness and vengeance.
This is the start of a very slippery slope. The mission is still technically on track, but his motive is changing. And the escalating violence continues with the murder of Professor Daniel Russell, the Lucasian professor of mathematics.
Russell was the last known human who had received the proof.
Right, so the alien uses his mind manipulation technology to cause a fatal event, ensuring the proof is truly gone for good.
But this murder, this logically necessary act, it causes the alien intense unease. The psychological cost is finally registering. He's accomplishing his logical goal, but he's feeling the emotional consequence, grief, fear, guilt, for the very first time.
And this unease is compounded by his interactions with Professor Ari Arasaratham, his friend, and a theoretical physics expert. Ari kind of serves as a sounding board for the alien's breakdown.
He doesn't know what's really going on, of course.
Not at all. Ari just casually and correctly discusses the history of great mathematicians. Nash, Cantor, Gödel, Riemann, all of whom struggled with or succumbed to madness from confronting the sheer chaotic nature of primes and infinity. Ari classifies the alien's breakdown as a possible Nash or Gödel scenario.
So he completely misses the extraterrestrial origin.
Completely. And it's Ari who also casually drops the truth bomb about the man the alien replaced. Isobel's true opinion that Andrew Martin was a selfish bastard.
So the alien realizes he's inheriting this deeply unpopular identity and that Isobel's resentment is perfectly rational. But the ultimate confirmation of his corruption comes during an act of personal violence that is totally unnecessary for the mission.
This is when he intervenes to protect Ari from a group of hooligans after a football match. The alien uses his powers to tighten the aggressor's lungs, causing an asthma attack. This is purely reactive, purely emotional defense.
He admits this was the first time he felt a definite desire to hurt him.
Not for the mission, but for personal protective anger. The logic of Vonadoria has been displaced by the visceral rage of a human defending a friend.
And it's here that the sensory world fully breaks through his rational firewall. He initially rejects music. He didn't agree with the concept of music, but he finds that listening to Holst the Planets produces this inexplicable electrochemical effect.
Music is initially analyzed as just an auditory counting exercise, the pleasure of counting without realizing you were counting. It's an ordered chaos that soothes the unease that was caused by Russell's death and the hooligan incident. The emotional resonance starts small. It's a purely chemical, internal soothing mechanism.
But it evolves pretty quickly. He moves from Holst to favoring Ennio Morricone and later, surprisingly, the Beach Boys, especially the track, "This Must Be the Place."
Right. And he concludes that music is the most advanced thing humans possess, a genuine superpower, capable of bypassing the frontal lobe and delivering immediate, irrational pleasure.
And the final, fatal corruption is the emergence of love, which the alien describes as love as annihilation. This is the point of no return.
He was ordered to read Isabel's neural structure via physical contact, specifically by touching her neck, to extract any remaining information about the proof. But instead, he initiated intimacy with her.
A huge act of defiance.
A profound act of defiance, maybe of war, against his own species. And the physical act led him to realize that love is not a construct or a delusion, but a physical force, which he describes as a supermassive black hole that pulls the rational self into the warmest of annihilations, causing the total loss of his logical identity.
And the most potent realization he sends back to his Vonadorian peers is that love is frightening, precisely because it defies logic. It leads one to actively choose suffering and finitude. He realizes he is opting for anguish over calm, for mortality over eternity.
The logical being chose mortality.
His hosts, they detect this catastrophic corruption. During an academic conversation, the alien is hit by this excruciating, targeted high-frequency sound and violet flashes. It's a Vonadorian attempt to interfere, to force a reset, and restore him to rational compliance.
But he fights the control using the very technology they gave him. He resolves to be disconnected from his home planet, and he requests to lose all his gifts, to be as close to being a human as it is possible.
He knows his rational, immortal life is over, but he prefers the chaos he's found.
And the consequence of that choice is immediate and physical. When he wakes up the next day, his Vonadorian detachment is gone. He feels conscious decay, pain in his knee, a stiff back, an anxious chest. He feels authentically human and exactly 43 years old.
And his once perfect mathematical skills are gone too. A final severance from his logical past.
This new, fully human existence is immediately resented. He documents the tedious, illogical rhythm of life, showering, deodorizing, applying makeup, hair brushing, all these routines done only to reduce body odor, hair, and shame.
He finds it baffling. Why spend so much energy masking your natural existence? He calculates that the time spent on these unnecessary hygienic rituals must consume a significant portion of the average human lifespan.
He notes it's a wonder they get out of bed at all, considering the daily ritual required just to approximate normalcy.
But then comes the final sensory acceptance, catalyzed by wine and the beauty of decline. He drinks Australian wine, which he previously hated because he was a snob who only consumed water.
He tastes the process of fermentation. He tastes life on Earth, where things decline from their peak ripeness and yet somehow taste wonderful. The acceptance of decay, of aging, of transition, it's all found in the glass.
And he appreciates the deep history of his environment. He realizes the glass he's drinking from, which is distilled from rock, knew the age of the universe. After 3 sips, the dull aches of his new mortality faded away.
And it proves that simple chemical delusion, which he judged so harshly with coffee, can sometimes be necessary for human happiness and for tolerating decay. He finally understood why humans seek these altered states.
So the physical and emotional corruption is now total. And this leads to his ultimate philosophical breakthrough, which is centered entirely on the statistical absurdity of our existence.
Yeah. Observing Isobel, the alien calculates the staggering odds of her or any human existing. Isobel Martin had 150,000 human generations before her. This level of biological, social, and reproductive coincidence is, and I quote, around 20,000 times more than the number of the atoms in the universe.
That statistical fluke seems like a pretty profound reason for the Vonadorians to fear us. It means our existence is literally an act of anarchy and chaos that defies rational modeling.
Absolutely. When he looks at her face, he no longer sees a collection of hideous curiosities. He sees the culmination of impossible luck. And love becomes the mechanism for him to truly comprehend this scale.
Love allows him to see forever, viewing Isobel's entire history in a single moment. The screaming baby, the eager student, the dedicated historian, the woman who chose family over career. He realizes love is a way to live forever, not in eternal calm, but in a single, profound, ever-moving present moment.
And the irony is just crushing. Isobel believes he is Andrew Martin, born 100 miles away in Sheffield, not 8,653,178,431 light years away on Bonadoria.
This localized mortal reality is, paradoxically, deeper, richer, and more compelling than the cosmic truth he once served.
He tries to confess the truth to her, but he fails. The sheer absurdity of the facts just makes the confession impossible.
So instead of revealing his extraterrestrial origin and mission, he tries to articulate his internal chaos through the most mundane human filter available: interior decorating.
Exactly. He discusses new furniture, stating the purple sofa was too close to violet, and it messed with his brain. A residual echo of the Vonadorian intervention flashes. The human facade is now permanent. The truth is deemed too disruptive.
But that facade crumbles under the weight of the real Andrew Martin's memory. During a date, Isobel wistfully recalls the real Andrew, the one who waited an hour in the rain for her on their first date. A small, self-sacrificing act of love that defined their early relationship.
And the alien realizes he can mimic love, but he can't replicate a shared lived history. He knows he can never fully become the man Isobel married, because that man was capable of that specific self-sacrificing physical discomfort for emotional gain.
The ultimate climax arrives shortly after, when the alien encounters Maggie, an earlier dalliance of the real Andrew Martin's. Isobel, furious, feeling the cumulative betrayal of the past few months, hyperventilates, smashes a pen pot, and physically attacks him.
And she demands he leave, shouting, "I thought you'd changed. I honestly thought you'd become someone else."
Lying hurt on the ground after being smacked, the ultimate revelation hits him, a physical epiphany. The pain, the anger, the chaos, it all just clicked into place. The point of love was not romantic perfection or logical cohabitation. It was to help you survive.
And the meaning of life was not an external constant or a grand logical equation. It was simply to hold the hand of someone you cared about and live inside the ever-moving, ever-changing present.
He summarizes his decision with profound simplicity. I let go of everything in the universe, everything except her hand. He has fully embraced mortality, chaos, and Isobel.
Having become fully human, the alien, now fully Andrew Martin, writes a guide on Gulliver's computer. The 97 observations for being human. This is the synthesis of everything he learned by trading logic for feeling. This is the ultimate Vonadorian report, except it's a love letter to the species he came to eradicate.
Let's delve into a few of the most potent observations, analyzing the Vonadorian logic behind them and the human truth that overwrote them. Let's start with self-acceptance. He advises, shame is a shackle. Laugh. 5, 1, 40.
Right. The alien realizes shame is the internal mechanism humans use to police themselves into conformity. The 97 books on clothing etiquette, the elaborate deodorizing routines. Shame is illogical, yet it's pervasive.
He says everyone is a comedy.
And if people are laughing at you, they just don't understand the joke that is themselves. To be human is to be inherently absurd, and resisting that absurdity just causes unnecessary suffering.
Then there's his insight on knowledge and logic. Specifically, technology won't save humankind. Humans will. Number 4. And his warning that history and literature are actually branches of mathematics, but economics is merely a branch of religion. Number 10.
That is perhaps his most cynical yet accurate observation. For a rational being, mathematics is fundamental truth. History and literature are just the measurement and description of human events, which follow statistically predictable, if chaotic, patterns, so they're branches of math.
But economics.
He observed humans placing absolute, unshakable faith in these abstract, invisible systems, markets, credit, debt, that have no objective physical reality and are based entirely on shared belief, fear, and manufactured scarcity.
It's a structure that requires faith, not proof. Therefore, it's a religion. That's a brilliant piece of outsider analysis.
It really is. Now, on mortality and time, a concept that was utterly abstract to him before he chose mortality, he states, your life will have 25,000 days in it. Make sure you remember some of them. Number 14.
The sources reveal that he observed humans constantly saying, if only I had more time, when in fact they have tomorrow and the day after, around 30,000 times if they reach a standard lifespan.
The problem isn't the quantity of time, it's the lack of conscious engagement with the present. He realizes that mortality forces value upon those few memorable days.
And finally, his core lesson, the one that cost him his eternity. Connection and love. You have the ability to love, that is enough. Number 2.
And he advises, don't ever be afraid of telling someone you love them. There are things wrong with your world, but an excess of love is not one. Now we're 53.
Love is scary because it's annihilation, yet he encourages it. He saw the fragility of the world, but he realized the power inherent in these illogical bonds. The one thing that defies the universal laws of repulsion and decay.
Is the pull of the supermassive black hole that is human intimacy.
And the final lesson, which speaks to his own journey from self-termination to affirmation, is crucial for anyone struggling with the chaos of human life. Don't kill yourself, even when the darkness is total. Wait for the stars. No. 88.
The conclusion of his journey is a slow descent into this melancholy human acceptance. He remains in Andrew Martin's persona, no scandal, no funeral, and moves to a quiet teaching job at Stanford, carefully avoiding any work that might re-advance mathematics or provide the tools for interstellar travel.
He embraces human suffering and routine. He gets drunk on white wine, listens obsessively to music Debussy, Morricone and the Beach Boys, and reads poetry, especially Emily Dickinson.
He realizes that by studying the whole species across the globe, he only loved Isobel more. The profound, overwhelming complexity of the species just boiled down to a singular, irreplaceable connection. He was searching for the cloud, but he found he thirsted only for the raindrop.
And he finds this profound, inexplicable beauty in nature, the big basin redwoods, sunsets, ocean waves. Initially, he uses logic to disagree with Emily Dickinson's, quote, "Beauty be not caused. It is."
He argues rationally that beauty is caused. The scattering of light creates a sunset. Gravitational forces create the tides. He can explain the mathematical cause of every beautiful phenomenon, but this is where his human brain takes over and it gets really interesting.
He realizes the mystery is not that these things are caused, but how they become beautiful. The physics of light are universal, but the feeling of a sunset is unique to the mortal viewer.
It's the human perception, tempered by mortality, by the knowledge that this moment is finite, that transforms the cold mathematical cause into the profound emotional effect. The beauty isn't in the objective data. The beauty is in the subjective experience of the observer. That is his final, ultimate surrender to being human. Hashtag outro.
The alien's insight really synthesizes into this profound contradiction that defines our civilization. J.G. Ballard once noted that civilized life, is based on a huge number of illusions in which we all collaborate willingly. And the alien found this to be true. We mask our odors, pretend economics is stable, and ignore the statistical absurdity of our existence.
Yet when humans study depth in quantum physics, biology, or love, they come closer and closer to nonsense, to irrationality, and to anarchy. Progress, as the Bonadorians understood it, is a myth. The present is all there is, that fragile, ever-moving, ever-changing moment defined by connection.
And the alien's final choice, that great paradox, was utterly illogical.
Completely.
He chose a life of aching knees, stiff backs, and anxious chests over eternal calm and logical perfection. He chose mortality, precisely because of the statistical improbability and the profound capacity for love that defines humanity.
Love, he learned, is a logic unto itself, powerful enough to destroy a mission and save a soul.
He chose to be fully human, disconnected from his homeworld and stripped of all his gifts, realizing the small, finite things, like the smell of Isobel's hair, the comfort of wine, or a single overcast morning on Earth, are infinitely more exciting than eternal perfect life on Mars or Vonadoria.
This leaves us with a final thought about courage, building on the existential dilemma that defined his journey. If reality is a vast, terrifying, meaningless void, then is true courage realizing the objective, logical truth, the Vonadorian path?
Or is it choosing the subjective, beautiful delusion love that brings meaning and joy, even if it entails suffering and inevitable decay? The alien chose the latter, affirming that old notion that the wounded deer leaps the highest, linking suffering directly to profound insight.
Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive. Thanks for tuning in.